Okay, we're going to continue our reading of Letter from Birmingham Jail by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We are going to pick up at paragraph 17 on page 200. Let us consider a more concrete example of just and unjust laws. An unjust law is a code that a numerical or power majority group compels a minority group to obey, but does not make binding on itself. This is difference made legal. By the same token, a just law is a code that a majority compels a minority to follow, and that it is willing to follow itself. This is sameness made legal. Let me give another explanation. A law is unjust if it is inflicted on a minority that, as a result of being denied the right to vote, had no part in enacting or devising the law. Who can say that the legislature of Alabama, which set up that state's segregation laws, was democratically elected? Throughout Alabama, all sorts, page 201, of devious methods are used to prevent Negroes from becoming registered voters, and there are some counties in which, even though Negroes constitute a majority of the population, not a single Negro is registered. Can any law enacted under such circumstances be considered democratically structured? Paragraph 19. Sometimes a law is just or fair on its face and unjust or unfair in its application. For instance, I have been arrested on a charge of parading without a permit. Now, there is nothing wrong in having an ordinance which requires a permit for a parade, but such an ordinance becomes unjust when it is used to maintain segregation and to deny citizens the First Amendment privilege of peaceful assembly and protest. Because what he's saying there is that he wasn't parading, he was peacefully protesting. Paragraph 20. I hope you are able to see the distinction I am trying to point out. In no sense do I advocate evading or defying the law, as would the rabid segregationist. That would lead to anarchy. One who breaks an unjust law must do so openly, lovingly, and with a willingness to accept the penalty. I submit that an individual who breaks a law that conscience tells him is unjust or unfair, and who willingly accepts the penalty of imprisonment in order to arouse the conscience of the community over its injustice, is in reality expressing the highest respect for law. Okay, now we're going to skip a couple paragraphs. If you can flip forward to page 203 at the very top, paragraph 26. I had also hoped that the white moderate, okay, since we skipped over some paragraphs, the white moderate, in this letter, he's very upset with the other black clergymen, the black ministers in Birmingham who didn't stand up with him, who didn't have his back, who were upset that he was protesting. He's also very disappointed with the white moderate, the white people in town who want equal rights for black people, but who don't show up to protest, who don't show up at the voting booth to get rid of segregation, who don't show up to fight for desegregated schools. So he is shifting his argument now from being disappointed with the black ministers, etc., at the churches, the clergymen who are not standing up for him in Birmingham, to being disappointed with the white kind of middle class people in Birmingham who agree with him but who don't want to stand up with him in the marches, the protests, the voting booth, etc. Okay, so getting back to the text, paragraph 26, page 203. I had also hoped that the white moderate would reject the myth concerning time in relation to the struggle for freedom. I have just received a letter from a white brother in Texas. He writes, all Christians know that the colored people will receive equal rights eventually, but is it possible that you were in too great a religious hurry? It has taken Christianity almost 2,000 years to accomplish what it has. The teachings of Christ take time to come to earth. Such an attitude stems from a tragic misconception of time, from the strangely irrational notion that there is something in the very flow of time that will inevitably cure all ills. That's my dog, Angel. She's very upset about segregation. Actually, time itself is neutral. It can be used either destructively or constructively. More and more I feel that the people of ill will have used time much more effectively than have the people of goodwill. All right, we're about halfway down paragraph 26. So he's saying here that time can be wasted or time can be used in a bad way or a good way. And he feels like the quote-unquote bad people have been using time on their side. And the good people have, not necessarily using time in a bad way or being bad people, but have not been, they've been wasting time, I guess is what he's been trying to say. So we are about halfway down, paragraph 26. We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people. If you can see that, you should probably underline that. That's a really important concept that he's getting across. That it's almost as bad. I know, Angel. It is bad. That the good people are being silent. Human progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts of men willing to be co-workers with God. And without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the forces of social stagnation. We must use time creatively, in the knowledge that the time is always ripe to do right. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy and transform our pending national elegy into a creative psalm of brotherhood. Now is the time to lift our national policy from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of human dignity. Paragraph 27. You speak of our activity in Birmingham as extreme. At first, I was rather disappointed that fellow clergymen would see my nonviolent effort as those of an extremist. I began thinking about the fact that I stand in the middle of two opposing forces in the Negro community. One is a force of complacency, made up in part of Negroes who, as a result of long years of oppression, are so drained of self-respect and a sense of somebodyness that they have adjusted to segregation, and in part of a few middle-class Negroes who, because of a degree of academic and economic security, and because in some ways they profit by segregation, have become insensitive to the problems of the masses. The other force is one of bitterness and hatred, and it comes perilously close to advocating violence. It is expressed in the various black nationalist groups that are springing up across the nation, the largest and best known being Elijah Muhammad's Muslim movement, nourished by the Negro's frustration over the continued existence of racial discrimination. This movement is made up of people who have lost faith in America, who have absolutely, page 204, absolutely repudiated Christianity, and who have concluded that the white man is an incorrigible devil. Paragraph 28. I have tried to stand between these two forces, saying that we need emulate neither the do-nothingnessism of the complacent, nor the hatred and despair of the black nationalist. For there is a more excellent way of love and nonviolent protest. I am grateful to God that through the influence of the Negro Church, the way of nonviolence became an integral part of our struggle. If this philosophy had not emerged, by now many streets of the South would, I am convinced, be flowing with blood. Paragraph 30. Oppressed people cannot remain oppressed forever. The yearning for freedom eventually manifests itself, and that is what has happened to the American Negro. Something within has reminded him of his birthright of freedom, and something without has reminded him that it can be gained. Consciously or unconsciously, he has been caught up by the zeitgeist, and with his black brothers of Africa and his brown and yellow brothers of Asia, South America, and the Caribbean, the United States Negro is moving with a sense of great urgency toward the promised land of racial justice. If one recognizes this vital urge that has engulfed the Negro community, one should readily understand why public demonstrations are taking place. The Negro has many pent-up resentments and latent frustrations, and he must release them. So let him march. Let him make prayer pilgrimages to the city hall. Let him go on freedom rides and try to understand why he must do so. If his repressed emotions are not released in nonviolent ways, they will seek expression through violence. This is not a threat, but a fact of history. So I have not said to my people, get rid of your discontent. Rather, I have tried to say that this normal and healthy discontent can be channeled into the creative outlet of nonviolent direct action. And now this approach is being termed extremist. Okay, that's the end of our reading for today. This last paragraph, paragraph 30, it's really important to note that he is saying that he's trying to point out that he is going out of his way to channel his followers, to let his message be known that there is a way to get this point across, that segregation is wrong, that racism is wrong, that all people are created equal. There's a way to get those messages out in a nonviolent way. And he's warning, he's not threatening, but he's warning that if you don't let people protest, if you don't let people express their feelings, that segregation is wrong, that racism is wrong, that separate is not equal, that these more violent organizations will begin to take over, that if you don't let people express the way they feel in a nonviolent way, they will get frustrated and start to express in a violent way, is the point he's trying to make in paragraph 30. But all right, that's that part of the letter for today. And Angel still wants you to know that segregation is wrong.